May 1st, 2025 special meeting of the Everett Public Schools Board of Directors is hereby called to order. Would the secretary please call the roll?
President Mitchell.
Present.
Vice President Herman.
Present.
Director Obelinsky.
Present.
Director Adkins.
Dr. Saltzman, could you please introduce the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair, today we'll be having candidates for the appointed Board of Director who's replacing Director Caroline Mason.
Thank you so much. Are there any objections to the agenda being adopted by general consent? No. Seeing none, the agenda is adopted by general consent. That moves us on to the, I hope I'm doing this in the right order. Okay, to the candidate interview, finalist interviews. At this time, we would like to call our first, we're a little early, first candidate for interviews. So this would be Jeff Doan. Please step up to the podium. I would like you to direct you to the PowerPoint you see on the screen. The interview will have two parts. Part one contains 10 candidate questions. You will have 3 minutes to answer each question. Part two will be any questions that you might have for the board. We have allocated 10 minutes for this section. You do not need to adjust the microphone because it should be at a stable height. It's really, really powerful. You'll see 3 lights on the dais there, on the podium there. Green means you have 3 minutes. Yellow means you have 30 seconds left. Red means your time has expired. We will go around and ask the questions. Are they somewhere in my thing, or are they online, or are they on the screen? They are, sorry. And we're just going to go ordinarily around and take turns asking the questions.
Makes sense. Thank you.
So I will begin with the first question. Oh, good. And they're even told me which questions I'm doing. Explain your experience and abilities and how those will enhance your being an effective board member. It's up there on the screen. What do you consider to be your greatest strengths, and how will you use them to be an effective leader and advocate for education? And the lights should come on. There you go. 3 minutes.
Perfect. Okay. Well, first, thank you for the questions. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. This is just an incredible experience, regardless of the outcome. It means the world to me, and just being part of this process. I have so much respect for the work that you do, so thank you. So my experience and abilities, and then I'll touch a little bit on what I believe my greatest strength to be. So experience and abilities consist of 15 years of experience, primarily at the Boeing Company, leading facilities and operations, strategy development, long-range planning, and project and construction management. I started at the Boeing Company as an intern in our global real estate group, and worked my way all the way up to a role as an executive overseeing global utilities management and operational sustainability for the company. Spanning between where I started and when I left Boeing, I had a number of experiences overseeing major construction projects up to $500 million in total value, overseeing project controls for schedule and cost management, and then also a number of different project management roles. I think incredibly valuable for the board would be my experience in leading asset management, overseeing the condition of the facilities infrastructure and setting in place 5-year, 10-year, and 30-year plans for the support and long-range utilization of facilities that would be incredibly beneficial for the school district. As a community leader, I've also been very involved in supporting the Mill Creek Parks and Recreation Board as a board member there for almost 6 years. And during that time, I've been able to be involved in a number of different activities supporting the preservation of open spaces. Most recently, I formed a group, the Friends of the Penny Creek Natural Area, that's committed to the preservation and restoration of some critical areas within the Mill Creek community, and have created a coalition of 150 almost community members who are interested in seeing the long-term potential of this precious space we have within Mill Creek. Last, I think most importantly, I bring the perspective of a parent. Starting next year, I'll have 3 young children that are in the Everett School District. They'll be at Penny Creek Elementary, and I've been very active and involved in volunteering at that school, as well as committed to supporting opportunities throughout all schools in the district. My greatest strength that I would highlight is that of a systems thinker. I apply the principles of system thinking through the decisions I make as an individual and the contributions that I bring to different boards or groups that I'm involved in. I like to think about what the implications are of the decisions that I'm making and the groups I'm with as they go throughout time. It's not just that decision, it's the second and tertiary effects of it. We're all part of a system. Thank you.
Great, thank you. We'll move on to the next question.
Thank you. Question number 2, why are you interested in becoming a board member? And what in the realm of public education is of special interest to you? What do you see as your long-term goal in this position?
My interest in supporting public education and where I think I can make an impact in this role is really about the passion I bring around the impact the built environment has on the learning conditions for our students and the work environment for our educators and professional staff. And I'm incredibly passionate about creating safe, sustainable, well-maintained and inspiring spaces that create a healthier learning environment, a place that people are proud to walk into every day when they show up, and that maximize the value for the taxpayers in our community. And I'm incredibly passionate about that interconnected nature of it, going back to systems thinking. I also believe that tying it to sustainability, that is a valuable attribute for all of our facilities, especially with the age and condition of the diverse portfolio the Everett School District has. There's a lot of work that can be done. And that if we can make our spaces more efficient to operate with a lower environmental footprint, that's something that the students can both learn and experience in real life and take throughout their careers and their futures. And it's something that creates a better environment, again, for staff and educators who have to work in that space every day.
Thank you. And I appreciate that you don't always have to use the full 3 minutes, so thank you. Dr. Roblinsky.
Question 3 is, as a fellow board member, what kind of relationship would you like to develop with and among the other board members?
The relationship that I would like to form with my fellow board members would primarily be of trust and of context. So kind of understanding where each of you come from as individuals will really help when it comes to making the difficult decisions. Understanding how you communicate, understanding the different factors that inform your perspective will ultimately help us to make better decisions together. I have tremendous respect for the learned experiences that each board member or each individual in a group brings to a conversation. I try to leverage those to the greatest extent possible so that people feel heard, but also so that I can understand maybe things that I don't have from my own experiences and fill in gaps. And at the end of the day, whether it's me accepting a decision that's been made by a group that isn't one that I would have come to on my own, I can respect where other people came from and I can support the decision of the board. So I would say having that trust, understanding where people are coming from are all key attributes that I look for in any group that I'm a part of and that I would look for as a member of this board.
Today.
The greatest challenges facing the district today. I'm going to highlight 2 things. So one is the long-tailed impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, and then the second one is financial sustainability, and there's some interconnectedness between them. So the impact had dramatic effects on both students in the academic environment, as well as parents and households at home, as well as educators. And I see it continue to ripple through the learning environment with my own children and with other parents that I talk to and in my own community. I believe that prioritizing the mental health resources both for the students as well as the support for educators to navigate the complex emotions that people are having to adjust to, as well as the other changes that have happened within the learning environment. And so whether that's new technology resources or just applying that systems thinking principle to see what are the indirect impacts that the pandemic has had that we're still chasing after 5 years later, and will help us to return to a new sense of normalcy. It's a journey. And then the second one is financial sustainability, that with the growth projections that are expected for the Everett School District, with the age of the infrastructure, with the limited dollars that are available, and the fiduciary responsibility we have to support our tax dollars that are being used, it's an incredibly complex challenge. And I believe that my experience in supporting one of the largest global real estate footprints in finding efficiency in all corners of an operation and engaging a global workforce, as well as the passion that I bring as a community leader and parent. Those are all elements that I would tap into to help tackle that complex challenge of financial sustainability for the district.
Thank you. So next one is, our district includes several cultures and communities. What suggestions do you have for how the district can best hear from and communicate with our richly diverse population? And what does equity mean to you?
So how we can reach our richly diverse population and equity to me. Well, I'll start with equity. So I think equity means reaching students, educators, people where they are. And that means both academically, it means emotionally, it means physiologically. Everyone is different, but meeting them where they are and helping them to advance with the necessary resources that are going to help them from that place going forward, that's what equity means to me. In terms of engaging and hearing from our diverse community, I'm going to start by highlighting, I think this district does some amazing things in this space. And so it isn't a matter of breaking the glass and reinventing the wheel. I think it's about listening and making adjustments. And one example of experience that I've had that was tremendously impactful in this space was attending the Penny Creek Elementary Festival of Cultures. That elementary school brought together so many diverse perspectives, and there were so many stories being told and so many smiling faces and so much interconnectedness that I was proud to have students at that school, and I hope that experience is being replicated throughout our district. So I would seek to understand, how can things like that be tapped into, be adjusted, be modified to be made more accessible and replicated throughout the district. And then second is another small adjustment, which is just looking at all of the content that goes out, all the communication that goes to parents. The school district and schools are very active in this regard, but ensuring that it has multilingual accessibility so that message is going out and that it's accessible to everyone. That it's not just maybe a reference on a back page, that it's brought to people leveraging technology in a way that they're able to consume the information and staying tied into what's happening at the school.
Thank you.
Thanks. For question 6, what would be your response if you were personally requested by a parent to remove a book that parent found to be offensive from a school library?
It's a tricky one. So if I was requested by a parent to remove a book from a school library, I would listen. I would reiterate the educational position on why we have different materials, and I would direct them to the process. So it starts off with listening, that I would really like to understand, where are they coming from? Why are they choosing to bring this message to me? What's the effect that they're hoping to achieve? And is there something that we can just address through dialogue? Second, I would reiterate that this school is built on learning from diverse perspectives. That's been a big part of my message as I've been talking up here, and that means that there's going to be material at the school that maybe doesn't align to your exact values, and that's part of the learning environment, is learning different perspectives. So without knowing exactly what the scenario is, I would reiterate that there's value in diverse perspectives and different content in the academic environment. And then last, I would say, there's a process. There's a process to review curriculum and content within the school district. I'm not intimately familiar with that process, but I know that it exists, and I would help to get that parent connected to the resources so that a review could be done following the appropriate steps, and then my role as a board member to follow up with this person to make sure that there's transparency and clarity on what the outcome was and why that decision was made. It's not my decision as a board member or even our decision as a board to make that call, but I can commit to transparency and follow through.
Question 7. The board works closely with the superintendent to ensure alignment between the strategic plan, the school board's goals, and the superintendent's goals. How would you work with the board and superintendent to ensure that both the board and superintendent are working toward the best outcomes for students?
Okay, so aligning the board's strategic plans and goals with the superintendent and ensuring that we are tracking to the right outcomes. Helps me just to kind of play back through the question. As a board, our role in establishing the strategic plan and vision for the district is paramount. That there's a lot of work that's gone into that. And so not having been part of that formulation process, I would come in as a new member to the board with a lot of respect and curiosity for what has been done in the past. And then I would connect, some of the approaches that I've used in the past as an executive leader and senior leader in prior roles, which is how do we kind of dissect those vision and priorities that have been established into actionable steps and measures. And then working with the superintendent to ensure that there's clarity of what those kind of sub-elements are of the vision and priorities that are being set. And then what is it that we are going to measure? So I actually have a follow-up question kind of along these lines, but what is it that we're going to measure that's going to determine whether we were successful or not? And do we all understand and agree on that principle? So it would be making sure I understand the vision and goals as they were set and why. Making sure that we break them down in a way that they can be digested and clearly understood, making sure that those sub-elements are clearly understood, and then making sure that the follow-up elements that we put in place to measure are things that we can actually measure, are things that actually affect that goal and vision, and that we all agree are the right things to be tracking to. That's the approach that I would take.
All right, your next question. Please describe how you feel about the use of capital bonds and levies to fund school district projects, and what is your approach to balancing the financial needs of the district with the potential impact on taxpayers?
This is a very, very important question. So I attended the bond panel last night, and that was very eye-opening and revealing in some of the challenges that I'd heard about, but it really made it visual for me. So my feelings around capital bonds, levies, and the approach to balancing financial needs, well, I want to reiterate the fiduciary role that we have, that really making sure that every public dollar that we're spending is something that we can trace back to beneficial community outcomes in the learning environment, what we've been chartered to support. And I believe that the capital bonds and levies are a critical component of being able to invest and modernize in the infrastructure that the district has. That I understand you have an operating budget that provides the basic maintenance of your facilities, but that is not going to fund the tremendous growth that this district has, the significant capital investments that need to happen across the district. And what we need to do is define what the requirements are based off of the professional input of the staff at the district, where that need is to keep things safe, operational, and efficient, and then pair that with the community input of what is the greatest priority, and then the reality of the growth projections that are out there. And then we need to be transparent to say, this is what it's going to cost to maintain this level of service in the academic environment, and be realistic that we cannot support that growth nor the significant modernization that needs to happen with simply an operating expense budget, that you truly need to make that significant investment, and we need to be thinking long over the horizon. So I believe the taxpayers are very smart, and that if we tell them the truth and explain the rationale, and the parents are very caring and thoughtful of supporting a inspiring educational environment like I described earlier, and if we can share that message with them, we'll ultimately be successful.
Yeah. Second to last question, almost done. Regular board meetings take place twice a month. Work study sessions often take place twice a month as well. There are also some time-sensitive meetings held during the workday. Is your schedule flexible enough to allow you to attend these meetings, and will you make them a priority?
Is my schedule flexible enough, and will I make this a priority? Absolutely. Absolutely. I view the commitment to this board as a top civic priority. It's a personal priority for the reasons I mentioned in my introductory comments, and it's one that I would treat with the highest prioritization that I apply to any other professional commitment throughout my career.
Thank you.
Okay, this is the last question. Do you plan to run for board position 3 in the 2025 election?
My plan at this point, with the recent development and the very close approaching deadline for filing, is that there are tremendous benefits that I believe I can bring as a board member. It is something that I am fully committed to in this interim timeframe, and it's something that I'm seriously considering running for. Gathering the information from last night's bond review, gathering the information from this interview today are all key components to me making a final decision. I'm very much open to the idea, but I'll be honest, I haven't finalized it. What I would say is that with 3 young children in the Everett School District, just starting in elementary school, I have many years ahead where I have this burning passion to be more involved in supporting the district in whatever way I can. So I can't commit to you right now that I've made a final decision. That came on fairly short notice, and I'm still evaluating it. But I do know that my interest in supporting the school board and the school district are going to be continuing for many years to come.
I honestly appreciate that answer, because I'll be transparent. When we planned this, we didn't think everybody would have to run. We thought everybody had a little bit of an on-ramp. So we apologize for that.
And I completely understand. I appreciate that. And that's the best I can offer is transparency at this point.
Great. So now we're going to move over to the next questions, which are really your questions of us. And so there's 10 minutes, and you can direct them at all of us, and we can decide up here who is the right person to answer them.
Okay. I do have a couple of questions. I did want to share just kind of one closing thought, if that's okay.
Yes,
well, can I
you
use
have 10
this
minutes.
time for that? Okay.
Yeah.
So I wanted to share an experience that happened to me one day when I was volunteering earlier this year at Penny Creek Elementary. I was in my oldest daughter's classroom, and they were doing a robotics Lego challenge. And the guest instructor came in and said, "What makes for strong teamwork? What do you look for in a strong team when they're working together?" And the kids raised their hand. They had a handful of different answers. And one young girl raised her hand, and she said, "Here at Penny Creek, we learn about hogs, logs, and frogs. And they can all be on a team. And the hog takes all the work for themselves. The log, they just sit there. They don't contribute much to the group. But the frog works together to get the project done, to get other people involved, to be a productive team member. And so at Penny Creek, we're frogs." I hadn't heard that before. I don't know if it's just a Penny Creek thing, but it really resonated with me across my leadership experience, my personal experiences, and that message just rings out in my head. And so I just want to share that the thought process, mentality that I would bring as a board member to this body would be that of a frog. That's who I aspire to be as I work with different groups, and wanted to share that message. So thank you again for the opportunity to interview today. You have a tough decision ahead of you. You have incredibly difficult work to do as a board, regardless of this decision. And so I wish you all the best. Now, a couple of questions that I have. Kind of going back to one of the questions I was asked, how does the board currently measure success? I would love some insight as to that.
Thank you for that. That we do have with our strategic plan, we do have our strategic priorities, and so they are on our website. And it is third grade literacy. I do not have them all memorized, unfortunately, but there's about 8 of them that we are constantly striving towards. And with our last strategic plan, we embedded social emotional learning throughout, as well as diversity inclusion throughout, so that we're constantly checking in on those. So our special board meetings that we've had the past 2 months have been looking at the strategic priorities and how are we measuring, how is the staff, what is the work the staff is doing to meet these goals. And so we're constantly looking at SBA testing is happening right now. If you have a third grader, potentially they're in the midst of it. But that's how we're measuring it too. Are we actually, for teaching to the standards, are students actually testing at standard or above? And if they're not, where are gaps? But then we have that strategic priority so that we can clearly know what we're moving towards.
Okay.
And we're in the process this coming year of redoing our strategic priority to update it.
Okay.
So there are great opportunities ahead.
That was going to be
So I
a
don't wanna
follow-up
take-
question. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it does get adjusted. Wonderful. Thank you, Tracy. Yeah, and back to the thought process around teamwork, what are some things that you do as a board to help develop how effectively you work together as a team? And then in particular, what do you do for new board members who come in?
One of you like to answer it as newer board members?
I'll jump in. I think it's a great question. And what jumped to mind, first of all, is we have the organization WASDA that has a number of support systems, some specifically for new board members, required trainings. And personally, I not only enjoy attending those events with my fellow directors, but our summer board retreat is also a critical time, I feel like, for all of us to work together as a team, get to know each other for the work throughout the year, and also the senior staff at the district, so we can, the points you were talking about before is understanding each person so that we can work together as a team. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
And then the
those sound like
superintendent's
great.
office does have a very rigorous drinking through a fire hose orientation process. But if you've ever read Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours, it really does take time, and give yourself the time. Ask questions along the way. Anybody else have something to add about that? Is everybody's new? Okay.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Tracy. And then last, let's see, I think I've already covered that one. I would just like to touch, again, in closing, on a couple other thoughts before I wrap up here. One, several of my examples have come from Penny Creek Elementary. I told you about my personal connection to that school. That is not, and don't want it to sound like that's the only school that I'm passionate about within this district. It's the entire ecosystem. I believe we're part of a community, back to the systems thinking approach, and that by having that personal connection, that brings me deeply into the learning environment of one school. I'm committed and passionate about the entire academic experience across the school district. I also want to touch that beyond just my prior experience in supporting facilities operation, it was also heavily involved in the setting of company-wide policy related to that domain. And so while the corporate policy setting is going to be different than the policy setting in the public sector, there's a lot of lessons that I've learned throughout that process that I would seek to bring to the board. So I want to thank you again for the opportunity to interview, and wish you the best in making a very informed, systematic decision on this new board appointment.
Thank you. And as a proud parent of a former Penny Creek Frog, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
We still have 4 more interviews, then we'll recess, discuss, And so you can stay here until the appointed time, or you can leave and come back. Or you don't even have to come back. You'll be notified regardless.
Okay. Thank
So,
you very
thank
much
you.
for that flexibility. Wonderful.
And that, if I can get all my papers here, we have a recess right now when we're done until 12:45, and there is sandwiches and lunch. All right. At this time, we'll return from recess. We would like to call our next candidate for interviews. And now we have Ryan Weber. Please step up to the podium. I would like to direct you to the PowerPoint you will soon see on the screen. The interview will have two parts. This PowerPoint will be coming. The interview will have two parts. Part one will contain 10 candidate questions. You will have 3 minutes to answer each question. Part two will be any questions that you might have for the board. You will have an allocated 10 minutes for this section. You do not need to adjust the microphone that you see up there. It is quite potent. You'll see 3 lights on the lectern when after the question is asked. The green light means you have 3 minutes. The yellow light means you have 30 seconds. And the red light signifies that your time has expired. By no means should you feel like you need to speak for the entire 3 minutes. If you're done, you're done. That's fine. We'll go in order of person here for our 10 questions. We'll each take turns, and I will begin. So welcome. If you can please, let me get the next question up. Okay, so I just wanted it up here so you could read it as I'm saying it. Explain your experience and abilities and how those will enhance your being an effective board member. What do you consider to be your greatest strengths, and how will you use them to be an effective leader and advocate for education?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Madam President. And so I believe I have a variety of experience, both as a father of 2 children in the district, most importantly to me, and also as a community advocate, being the chair of a neighborhood association here in Everett, gave me a lot of opportunity to interface with members of the school district, actually hold meetings in some of the schools, meet with administrators, meet with city officials of every single department you could think of, just about. In addition, I have financial experience through my professional work. So I think balance is something I strive to achieve in life, and I think a balanced approach to everything from balancing the budget to, giving our students, our staff, teachers, what they need to be most effective. I think those are some of my strengths.
Thank you.
So for question number 2, why are you interested in becoming a board member, and what in the realm of public education is of special interest to you? What do you see as your long-term goal in this position?
Okay, so again, yeah, I'm interested in the school board. In part selfishly, I do have 2 children in the district, so I've got a lot of experience with different schools and programs that the district has to offer. I've got, some ideas on what we could do differently based on what other districts are doing, or, other ideas that are out there. Special interest to me really is, tackling the budget to, special programs, feeder programs, things that we could do, again, that other districts are doing, looking at them and taking best practices from other places. Long-term goal is really that, just to see, our students achieve great things as they progress through our district, to see the teachers be supported with what they need, and the staff, and as part of the bond committee, I know what we're dealing with as far as we need so much more than we have now, and that need will never be fully met. But working towards getting those needs met, is a long-term goal. Yeah.
As a fellow board member, what kind of relationship would you like to develop with and among the other board members?
That's a good question, and some public entities have rules about that. So I haven't fully read what those rules are, but I would, I like to work collaboratively, with staff, other board members. I don't see, even a disagreement in a policy or budget item as a total sticking point. I mean, I think there's always things to negotiate and work through, and and then again, there are differences that can't be resolved at times, and you have to just, once a decision's been made, you have to move on to the next thing. And I don't, I like to have a good collegiate relationship with people.
What do you consider the strong points and greatest challenges facing students, educators, in the district today?
So strong points, I mean, we've got fantastic kids. We've got great, teachers and staff. There are challenges facing students, everything from screen time to social media to just, not having certain special programs that may, every student is different. And I think sometimes kids can kind of fall through the cracks and not be properly recognized for a program that would be suitable for them, and special types of accommodations. I think among male and female students, there are very different challenges as well. Spoken to a lot of, boy parents who are struggling because they get phone calls very often, and it's very hard. And I speak from experience on that. It's like, I don't know what else I can do, but I'm doing as much as I can, to support the education of my child. And gosh, yeah, and with the budget, I mean, I know there may be even more budget issues down the line, not only with, the bond, whether or not the next bond passes. If it doesn't, then that's a major challenge to overcome. Federal funding could be under threat. So there's a lot of things to work through, and I know, through 2020 and COVID, there were a lot of things to work through on that as well, with some one-time funding that doesn't come back. Yeah, and I think we just have to look at our education system overall in our district, and how can we better serve our students? How can we best serve them, that is, to be among the top performers as a district nationwide, and, compete globally, because all of our students are going to compete globally, even for local jobs. So there's a really high bar in the modern world. So we have to make sure we're getting, whether they're college-bound kids, whether they're going into trades, we have to make sure we have kids steered in a direction before they graduate, because, there's too often kids end up kind of drifting after high school, not sure what to do, and so.
Our district includes several cultures and communities. What suggestions do you have for how the district can best hear from and communicate with our richly diverse population? And then a second question, what does equity mean to you?
Yeah, well, what equity means to me is an understanding that we don't all come from the same place. We don't all have the same advantages or disadvantages. We are all perceived at first glance by everyone based on what we look like. That is the first impression that we make on anyone around us, whether we look like most of the people in our community or we look different. And so equity starts with recognizing and understanding that that's the case, and working on ways to address inequality. And so there are students who need different supports based on their own personal backgrounds. As far as cultures and communities, I love the dual language Spanish program. One of my children did go through a dual language program, and it was great. I mean, I tested her afterwards, after fifth grade, like, did you get spelling and grammar and everything, in English? And like, she was great. So it's a great program. I like to see it expanded. As far as other languages, I know we've got a lot of, I believe some of the highest second language families are among, we've got Ukrainian, Russian, Vietnamese, Chinese, a large Marshallese community, and Spanish, of course. I do come from a dual language Spanish household, so family. So yeah, I think trying as best we can to meet them where they are, in their language with translation of materials. Perhaps, is there a way to do a special event annually in, the top 5 languages or something, to try and gather these communities together and see what issues they're dealing with, what ideas they have. Yeah, so, and the multicultural nights are great. Most schools have those, and I've attended multiple of those. So yeah, I think we just have to keep really keep up with people and make sure that everything is accessible to them in a language they understand, and work on making them feel welcome. So.
What would be your response if you were personally requested by a parent to remove a book that parent found to be offensive from a school library?
Okay. So I believe in education and in the power of ideas, the power of learning, opposing viewpoints as well. And so, I think there's a lot to learn from reading something that you disagree with. It doesn't have to mean when you finish the book, you don't necessarily agree with it at the end. Or, you may learn more depth to an issue, and that could make it more complex in a way. I think it's also worthwhile to read historical fiction in the context that it was written and have discussions on that. Why was this situation dealt with in a certain way in the book and everyone seemed okay with it at the time? That's an important conversation to have. If you take a book out and don't have those conversations, then how do we remember from the past? Yeah, I mean, I'm not not real big on banning books or burning books or, yeah, I'm all about reading opposing viewpoints or things that I already agree with. But I think today it's too easy to be in a box and reading, especially on the internet. You're more likely to just read and get things that you agree with. And I think that's one of the challenges of our times is how do we all communicate to each other? How do we believe the same facts? Or how do we deal with the fact that we don't sometimes agree on facts? But, in the end, that all comes down to education and learning different viewpoints, being open to possibilities, and learning how to discuss those differences with people in a civil way. And so I think that's a big part of education that we need, and I know that we're doing that in our district. We're trying as hard as we can, but that's pretty much what I would say. I'm not going to be quick to remove a book from the shelves. Yeah.
The board works closely with the superintendent to ensure alignment between the strategic plan, the school board's goals, and the superintendent's goals. How would you work with the board and superintendent to ensure that both the board and superintendent are working toward the best outcomes for students?
Really just continuing on the last question in a way. I mean, so I'd, be here, read documentation related to upcoming meetings, speak with superintendent and other board members on the issues at hand, learn from them, what are their opinions? What should we do in this situation? And if so, why? Or why not? And I don't see that kind of questioning as a challenge. I just see it as, I want to know why or why not. Why do you agree with a policy, or why would you like to change it? Yeah, I mean, really working toward the best outcomes for the students. It just comes down to, being present and being able and willing to dig into the details on an issue or on the budget or other things, and weigh the positives and the negatives. I mean, I've mentioned adding programs, but there's really a plus and a minus to everything. As hard as that may be to believe sometimes, but when we are adding programs, well, what are we taking from? Or, how much does this cost in the budget? And do we have that? Or where do we take it from in the budget? Because, yeah. I think that's really it without rambling more. I'm pretty brief and blunt with my answers for the most part. So.
The next question is, describe how you feel about the use of capital bonds and levies to fund school district projects. And what is your approach to balancing the financial needs of the district with the potential impact on taxpayers?
Yeah, well, like I mentioned, I'm on the capital bond planning committee as we speak, and there's a very large list of needs, and most likely we're not gonna get everything on the list. But I believe, the approach that I have in this bond cycle, we've had previous bonds fail, which only increases the list of needs. So my approach for this bond really is hopefully that we spread out the funds as much as we can around, from the north to the south to the central part of the district, and spread it out among elementary to middle school to high school, and with some sports and extracurriculars as well. But yeah, trying to have a balanced approach that is not too large of a burden to swallow for taxpayers. Yeah, we're all feeling the burden of taxes on top of inflation in recent years, and probably more to come. So I think, yeah, we have to do a good job at, first choosing the right areas that need funding, whether it's a brand new school or new in lieu of remodeling, refurbishing an old school. Where was I going with that? But I mean, really, it is a balanced approach of meeting. So our elementary schools are, especially in the south, mostly they're very over capacity. Yet in the north, some of them are under capacity at the moment, but that also has to do with some large projects that actually reduced the population at those schools temporarily, and they will be growing again, especially with the city promoting more, up growth in our urban area in the north. So yeah, it really comes down to that, just spreading it out and being able to sell it to more of the taxpayers and residents, that this benefits all of us. So.
Thank you. Second to last question, so almost done. Regular board meetings take place twice a month. We have work study sessions often also taking place twice a month. There can also be time-sensitive meetings held during the workday. Is your schedule flexible enough to allow you to attend these meetings, and will you make them a priority?
Yes, I do primarily work from home, and I have flexibility in my schedule to, my job involves monthly and quarterly deadlines generally. It's not like a daily productivity kind of situation. So, yeah. Yeah, I don't see that being an issue overall.
Okay, last question. Do you plan to run for board position 3 in the 2025 election?
So yeah, that was the new news to this. I plan to run if appointed. If not appointed, I can't guarantee that, but I don't know.
And I will apologize, we didn't think that either, so this has we've all been blindsided by this, so really do appreciate that. Now you have 10 minutes. If there's anything you'd like to share with us, we'll sort of answer them based on what we think our strengths are, and what other things you might want us to know for your candidacy. So you have 10 minutes for this.
Okay, sure. Wow, yeah, I mean, I know I've answered questions by email as well, but what do some of you see as the biggest challenges coming up? Really, is it the budget generally? Are there other hot button issues or interests that any of you have, going forward that what are the areas that you're focused on, or what do you see as being the biggest challenges in the coming year or two?
You want to take a chance?
It's a big one.
It is a big one.
Sure, I'll take a crack at that. I think the district, we've got to continue to have a really strong focus on the budget, and that is going to. I don't think that what we're seeing right now across the state is going to be solved anytime soon. I think we have to continue to really do a really good job on the finances to provide a strong environment for kids and job stability for our teachers and staff. I think that we have to continue to focus on the elements of our strategic plan, which starts with third grade literacy, increasing achievement in science and math, social emotional learning, a commitment to diversity. All of these things are incredibly important, and we can't ever take our eye off that. I would also say that I think improving outcomes for our special needs kids is very important, especially given the underfunded way that the state kind of dictates what we have to do for those students. And then I would also say that we've really got to do a really good job for our multilingual learners also. So there's a lot that weighs on me anyway.
And we have some significant headwinds coming that, thank goodness for our state superintendent and our state attorney general. But at what point, and hopefully it never cracks, but our state superintendent does keep us very well updated so we can focus on what we need to focus on locally, which is really nice that they are protecting us at that level.
No, I would also say that the big challenge with just what's happening around DEI and diversity and just protections and assistance and grants for LGBT kids, for kids of color, and so on and so forth, not even looking at the impacts of funding on us as a district, but looking at the impacts of funding on the community. We're seeing a lot of community organizations that support, like homeless kids, for example, having to just not receive any grant money. We saw Friends of Youth in just a few miles south of here. They're refusing any kind of federal funding because they just cannot comply with the diversity requirements that they're putting on them. And that, I think, is going to underline how important it is for us to be taking care of these kids and making sure that they're supported in the classroom, even when increasingly they're receiving less and less support outside of the classroom.
Thank you, Charles, because we are not an island as a school district. It really is the community that we serve by sitting up here. So thank you. Any other questions or comments about yourself?
Well, I mean, about myself, so like I said, I talked a bit about my background. My kids have been in various different programs, from dual language to high cap to potentially the ORCA program next year. You'll see how that goes. So yeah, I really we do a good job at having, CTE programs and, various different things that apply to students and meet them where they are, where they need to be. So yeah, if appointed, I really would like to get in and look at, what is the success of the various programs, and then looking at other departments other school districts, and how are there things we could do better or not, and so that's pretty much my approach is, I like to research things, look at statistics and numbers and see, is there something that could be cut and moved into something more effective or not? And hopefully, we don't have to look at too many cuts, but yeah, I think that's pretty much all that I have for you.
Oh, great. Well, I have a girlfriend that's daughter went through the ORCA program. Didn't mean the UW took her any less time, much to my friend's chagrin.
Oh.
We have 3 more interviews after this, then we'll deliberate. You're welcome to stay until we're done, or you can leave, come back, but there's no expectation for you to even come back because we'll notify everybody regardless.
Okay.
So thank you so much for the opportunity today.
All right. Thank you for your time. Have a good day.
Yeah, thank you. And then we have one more person in 15 minutes, so we can recess for 15 minutes. Well, we'll come back from recess. Is my mic live? Okay, so at this time, we would like to call our next candidate for interviews, and that candidate is Anne Marie Lawrence. Would you please come up to the podium? I would like to direct you to the 3 buttons that you see on the, to the PowerPoint you see on the screen. The interview will be in 2 parts. The first part is for us to ask you some questions and for you to elicit some answers. And the second part is your questions for the board. 10 minutes. You can direct them to us. We'll sort of answer them in the best, whoever the best person is, or maybe tell more about yourself if you need to. You do not need to adjust the microphone because it is quite potent. There are three lights located on the lectern. The green light, when it comes up, will signify that you have 3 minutes. The yellow light will come on, you have 30 seconds. And when the red light comes on, your time is up. And do not feel like you need to spend the whole 3 minutes. If it's a pretty cut, and some of the questions are very yes/no questions. So don't feel like you have to use the full 3 minutes. And so we'll begin with the first question that I have, which is explain your experience and abilities and how those will enhance your being an effective board member. What do you consider to be your greatest strengths and how will you use them to be an effective leader and advocate for education?
Thank you very much. Happy to be here. I am passionate about students and helping them in the community. I've done that through my work as a member of the Rotary Club of Everett, where I've been co-chair of the scholarship committee for the last 6 years. Just this past Saturday, we interviewed over 80 students here, and we partnered with the Everett Public Schools to interview, select, and provide monies to help kids go to college and trade school. I've also been very involved with scholarships with the Gertrude Jackson Memorial Scholarship Fund that was named after my aunt, who taught 3rd grade at Garfield Elementary School for 40 years. And also I've been very involved with the Assistance League of Everett, where I help raise money to provide clothing for needy students and also graduation costs. I feel like I would be an excellent director because I would be a great community builder, a liaison between the community and the district. I would listen to parents, students, community members, get their feedback and relay that to the district. I feel that if we act together as a community and we get input from everyone, we are stronger. Our community is stronger, and as a result of that, our children are stronger and well educated. I enjoy meeting people, being a part of a collaborative team. I have worked on different boards like the Henry M. Jackson Foundation Board, where we have learned to talk about grants and issues, make decisions. Sometimes we don't always agree, and that's okay. We've learned to respect one another's position. I feel like I'm a very good listener, and I like to listen to what people have to say. Think about what they're trying to relay and where they're coming from. Be open-minded to the fact that they may have thought of an issue that I didn't think of that may completely change my decision. But the bottom line is being a team, working together, because we're here for the students and we need to be professional and we need to collaborate as a team. Thank you.
For question number 2, why are you interested in becoming a board member and what in the realm of public education is of special interest to you? What do you see as your long-term goal in this position?
You know, I've been interested in being a board member because of my interest in schools and public education. It goes back to family values. I grew up in a family where we valued education highly, and in particular public education. Because of my father's job in the government, I was only able to be in the Everett Public School system first, second, and half of 3rd grade. And then I went on to public school in Washington, D.C., half of 3rd grade through 7th grade, and then going on to private school. At that time, it was segregation busing, desegregation busing. So I had a broad experience with many different types of students that had a different daily living schedule than I did. And I learned from that, and in particular, in middle school, I was in the minority. Now, my father, his whole family went to public school, and he always taught that value, that it's so important for all of us, because a free education is a great equalizer that lifts all of us, right? It's fabulous, because public education is an investment. It's a public investment. And that's seen with the 2007 McCleary decision by the by the state legislature, where the top priority for the Washington State Constitution is to prioritize education, funding for public education K through 12, which is wonderful. And I see this position as really a way to advocate for our public schools, the importance of that, and how it helps our community be stronger. And it's all about the kids, right? The vision that they are going to lead and shape our future. And to do that, we need to be in their lives and helping them. Thank you.
As a fellow board member, what kind of relationship would you like to develop with and among the other board members?
I would really enjoy this. I would like to get to know each board member, learn about your past, your experiences. What are you doing now? Why are you a board member? What do you believe about public education? Why is this important to you? Do you have kids in the school district? Why do you love Everett? I would like to just kind of know where you're coming from, what you feel are your strengths and what you add to the group, and what can I do to help make the group stronger, better, more cohesive, so that we can all get to know each other. I think once you talk to people and get to know where people are coming from, it really, it brings you together. It gives you greater understanding on different policies and things that will come up, and I think that's an important thing.
All right, the next question we have for you is, what do you consider the strong points and greatest challenges facing students, educators, and the district today?
Well, that's a broad question. It's a good question. I think some of the challenges would be budgets. So we look at with the getting rid of the Department of Education, basically, and budget cuts from the state. How can we have appropriate funding for the school district that can help kids with their learning and keeping up with the curriculum? So as a director, I would rely on the experts, the CPAs, the people that know this, how best to manage that if there are any financial issues that are on the horizon. I thought it was great that the state legislature passed on Monday, but of course it needs to go to the governor's desk and decide. But he gave money, lots of money for special education. He also allowed, the state legislature also allowed that we can raise the increase on levies so that we could go to our constituency, and if we need more funding for levies and things, we can get that. So that's extra money that I think will really help. Also, I see that there is a lot of issues before the Supreme Court on religion and public schools. And I think this is a big issue that's going to be coming up this year. Right now in the Supreme Court, you just had the charter school legislation where there was a Catholic charter school in Oklahoma that was getting free public education, and they believe, the charter school believes it's under the First Amendment, it's their right to freedom of religion that they can do this. And so that's before the court. There's another case called Muhammad versus Taylor, and it is about people from, so Muslims, Roman Catholics, Ukrainian Orthodox, and other religions. They are suing the Montgomery County School District because of freedom of religion. They want to have the ability to opt their students out because of, reading of LGBTQ plus books, if they don't like that, or other things, but it's a broader scope. And so we'll see what happens. It's really the First Amendment right of, is it religion, freedom of religion, and does that supersede the First Amendment clause of the separation of church and state? And then we have the issue of LifeWise that is in our school district now at Emerson, and where that goes. So, thank you.
No, thank you. Our district includes several cultures and communities. What suggestions do you have for how the district can best hear from and communicate with our richly diverse population? And what does equity mean for you?
So what I think is really great is going to a multicultural event. A couple years ago, I went to Jackson High School, and they had a multicultural event. And you walk in and you see all of these flags from all different countries. It gives me shivers. It's just spectacular. And then we went downstairs, and everybody had their own table where they had their special food that comes from their country. They might have traditional clothing that came from their heritage and their country. And then they talk about their culture, and you can interact with the students, and you can see that pride. And then you can also see the other students learning about their other friends with different cultures. And it really brings the community together. And I especially loved all the music and the dancing. It was just a great event. And I think if we have more things like that where we can learn about other people's cultures and ideas, I think that makes us stronger as a community, because one of the core values in the strategic plan is diversity, and that is embracing diversity, and that embracing our differences as a core makes us stronger. And I really believe in that. And I would like to promote that and hope that we can have more of those sorts of things going on in the future, where we can learn from one another. What does equity mean to me? It means leveling the playing field, and that we have equitable access to education for all, that we have equitable access to resources, so that there are learning resources for all of our students, no matter where you live in the district. That needs to be fair, and it needs to be out there. And then we need to help lift people that might need extra help, whatever that may be. If it's English as a second language, then we need to give funding for our teachers for professional development to help students. Or we have online translation programs so that students can keep up with the curriculum and be part of the group, so that no one is left behind. So those are just a couple of things that I would think of. But equity is just all being open and fair and appreciating one another and listening, and not having people be isolated. We want everybody to be together. Thank you.
For the next question, what would be your response if you were personally requested by a parent to remove a book that parent found to be offensive from a school library?
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't believe in banning of books. I think all books of all kinds should be available to our students. If a particular parent had an issue with a particular book, then maybe I don't know, I mean, that's not my role as a director to tell the parent what to do or the teacher what to do. But I would think that the parent would want to talk to maybe the librarian and just say, can you, I don't want my child reading that book, if that child wants to check out at the library, I just don't want that my child selecting that book. If you could select a different book for my child, that would be better. But all the books should be out for all the children, because we're here for all of the kids. We're not here for one single person. We're here for everyone. And the other thing is, we learn from different cultures, different groups, different ideas. That's part of learning. And it doesn't mean that you have to follow that belief, but you need to be exposed to that. So I hope that answers your question.
The board works closely with the superintendent to ensure alignment between the strategic plan, the school board's goals, and the superintendent's goals. How would you work with the board and superintendent to ensure that both the board and superintendent are working towards the best outcomes for students?
Well, as a board member, we would want to collaborate and work with the superintendent to go over the strategic plan and make sure that with the board of directors that also puts together your annual goals and strategic plan for what you want to accomplish. Part of that would just be making sure that the superintendent is working towards the strategic goals, and then we would be making sure that policies with the directors are followed up with meeting the strategic goals. It's important because the strategic plan sort of oversees the running of the Everett Public Schools, and we just want to make sure that we're on track to help kids to get a good education so that they can be the best that they can be. And I would welcome conversations with the superintendent and the board if that's allowed as a group to talk about things. And I hope that there's planning meetings to talk about the strategic plan. Are we going in the right direction? What do you think? Where should we go from here? Or does there need to be an addition, an add-on to it if there's something that's left out that we forgot? So I would look at it as a collaborative approach where we all are working towards the same goals. The superintendent and the school board is working to help our kids. Number one priority.
All right, the next question we have for you is describe how you feel about the use of capital bonds and levies to fund school district projects, and what is your approach to balancing the financial needs of the district with the potential impact on the taxpayer?
I believe that we do need both levies and bonds, because even though with the McCleary Act that gives state funding, it doesn't fund everything. Right? It doesn't fund, we need a new school, so it doesn't fund that. It also doesn't fund some of our other programs that are really vital for our kids. We just don't have enough money. And so we need to act as a community. As I said earlier, really, public education is an investment in the future, and part of that investment is through bonds and levies, and the community is part of that, because we're all raising these kids together because they are our future, and so we need new schools. We need to maintain schools. If we don't maintain schools, things fall apart, and it's actually probably more expensive. So we need to be up on things. And also, you need to look at the students, how they feel. I know my son, he was in public school. He went to a school and it was all redone. And all the kids there, they felt this pride. It's safe, it's clean, and that the district cares about them. That's the other piece to it. And we want the best, if we want the best for our kids, we need to invest money. And that comes, if it can't all come from the state, which it can't, then we need to look towards other options, and that's levies and capital bonds. And the levies could be for transportation, operational needs, things like that, and maintenance, and the bonds for larger construction projects that are going on. I know right now there is the 2022 capital levy that was a 6-year levy, 325 million. I think 229 million went to help, is going to help facilities. They currently broke ground for Jackson Elementary School, which is really exciting for our students. They're going to have a new place, new playground, the whole works. And it's time. It's time. We can't just let our schools fall apart. We have to maintain them. We have to improve them. And also it provides technology, which is so critical to student learning now. We need to keep up with the modern times if we want our kids to succeed in our future and doing the best that they can be and do. Thank you.
Almost done. So our regular board meetings take place twice a month. We have work study sessions that often take place twice a month as well. There are also some time-sensitive meetings, like today, that are held during the workday. Is your schedule flexible enough to allow for you to attend these meetings, and will you make them a priority?
Yes, absolutely, to both questions. I am available, and it would definitely be a priority, absolutely.
Perfect. Last question. Do you plan to run for board position 3 in the 2025 election?
Yes, I do. I definitely would do, especially if I were chosen as the director, I would definitely do that. I've never run for office, but I'm willing to learn. It's all a learning process.
Thank you. That is the end of that. And I do want to apologize. We were all blindsided by that, that you would have, whoever gets appointed has to run. And so you found out at the same time we did, because we thought our planning wouldn't allow for that. So I apologize. Okay, so this is the last question. Are there any things you would like to share with the board that we have not asked you? Or are there any things that you would like to ask of us? And we will answer. If you do have a question, we'll sort of, whoever thinks they're best to answer the question will answer the question.
Great, thank you so much.
And you have 10 minutes for this.
Thank you. What do you feel are the best qualities for a director to have? And how can the director be effective in reaching out to the community?
That's a large, yeah, go ahead,
I can take the
please.
first half.
Yeah.
I think being willing to think out of the box and having innovative thinking and just, being willing to, I guess, keep us all accountable with these ideas and just, sorry, I'm not explaining that well.
Keep going.
Innovation, I think, is like the thing that I most look for. I really want to see people that are not going to be stuck to the old ways of thinking.
And I think for being out in the community, it took me a while to learn to not respond, to just listen, because we aren't really the deciders. It's the teachers, the principals, the superintendent that are really the deciders of the day-to-day work. But it is to listen, what is the temperature, what are people saying, to bring that back to the board, bring it back to the superintendent, so if there is something that needs to be acted on. But it is really, if a teacher sees, and this happened to me a lot of times at Fred Meyer, my daughter's science teacher would see me and complain about what we were doing in the district, and I just had to nod and smile and thank her and, enjoy your Sunday, and then say, okay, yep, that's what the teachers are really feeling. And it is just sort of just be out there and just be I think the constant thing for the district. So anybody else have a different answer? Yeah, go ahead.
It's not different per se, because I agree with everything you all said, but passion for public education and recognition of our large and unique district, that there are many things going on and innovation in a lot of different areas. So passion for learning, passion for working together, and dedication.
And I know this is being recorded, but I think it's the best thing ever when I ask a little child where they're going to school and they say, I go to Garfield. Oh, you go to the best school. And they say, yes, I do. And then somebody says, oh, I go to Penny Creek. Oh, you go to the best school. Yes, I do. And so it is just affirming that it's that passion for the schools that we have here. And
Absolutely.
the kids love their schools.
Aw.
So anything else?
How do you feel that you work as a group in deciding policy? Do you discuss ahead of time policy or here? Could you just explain your process about how you go about it?
Yeah, well, the superintendent's office updates us on the policies. We follow for the most part, this WASDA is our state organization, so they make model policies. We adjust them to our needs, all reviewed by legal counsel and the superintendent's cabinet. And we have a process of a Friday report that comes out. So anything that's going to be changing in a policy will come out about 2 weeks before. The superintendent, if it's maybe a hot button issue, will have one-on-one meetings with us to say, hey, just so you know, this is coming. And then they're presented to us at a board meeting where we can, there's Open Public Meeting Act rules, so we can't discuss things outside of a board meeting except for one-on-one. And so up here, sometimes we've had some questions about some of the policies and how is the real impact on that going to be for the district. And sometimes the staff person who is presenting them says, we'll take it back and we'll advise. And sometimes they're really easy because it's the right thing to do. And but I think it's really rare that we really have a question about something because we don't feel it's right. But for the most part, WASDA, the state organization, I think does good with us, and our staff does a really good job of what is the best thing for this district.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I don't have any further questions unless if you have any further questions for me.
I think we're good, but you have two parents that are Henry M. Jackson grad students, and she's a current daughter at Henry M. Jackson High School. And so we have two more people after this. You're welcome to stay until the end or come back, but you don't need to stay. We'll notify everybody regardless. But thank you so much for coming today.
Great. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Appreciate that.
All right, so our next person is not due until 2:25, so we actually have a recess until 2:25. So we are recessed. Thank you. We'll return from recess. Thank you for letting us go just a little bit early. At this time, we would like to call up our next candidate for an interview, Kurt Lillibridge. Please step up to the podium, and if I said your name wrong, I apologize. I would like to direct you to the PowerPoint you see on the screen. The interview will be in two parts. Part one contains the 10 candidate questions. And then part two you'll have 3 minutes to answer each of those questions. Part two will be any questions that you might have for the board, and we allocate 10 minutes for that section. You do not need to adjust the microphone that's up there on the podium because it's very sensitive. You'll see on the podium 3 lights, and the green light when it comes on signifies the start of your time. The yellow light, when it comes on, says you have 30 seconds left, and the red light signifies that your time has expired. We have 10 questions that we're going to ask sort of round robin here. And so I'll begin with the first question. They'll each appear up on the screen, but I'm still going to read them. But this will give you time if they're on the screen to sort of reflect on what the answers, what we're being asked of you. And so the first question is explain your experience and abilities and how those will enhance your being an effective board member. What do you consider to be your greatest strengths, and how will you use them to be an effective leader and advocate for education? And if I said your last name wrong, could you correct me?
Everybody gets it wrong.
Okay, what's the right way to say it?
Lillibridge.
Lillibridge. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Well, my experience is I've been a Everett person my entire life. My dad was a principal here in Everett School District for 35 years. My sister, 35 years. My son has a teaching degree and a doctorate, and I'm the only one that didn't get into education. But I got into business, and when I was into business, I'm into I was a boat business and waterfront for 13 years and then became the mortgage banking. I've ran 3 different companies of as much as 250 employees at one time in 23 branches in the state of Washington, and sold it. Thought I was going to side off right off in the sunset, but my sons, I have 4 boys. One played professional baseball, and the other 4 wanted to be in the mortgage banking. So they said, "Dad, let's do it again." So I started another mortgage bank. and finally last year they kicked me out of the office and said, "Get away," and locked the doors and changed the combinations. And so I'm retired. I don't use retired, I use the word repurposing my life. So I'm here. I feel that from my experience in mortgage banking, I've done a lot of construction work as well. In my church, I just finished as the chairman of a $3 million church project addition. I've done land development, so I know building and real estate pretty well, pretty versed in all of that. And so that part of it is my work background. Family, I have 4 boys, I said, 12 grandkids, number 13 on the way in a couple days. Looking forward to that. So I'm very busy with family, and family is very important to me. That's a key purpose of my life. But I've also got grandchildren in the Everett School District, which I'm really proud of. And so I love to mentor them and be with them. I'm always at the schools. I went through Everett High School myself, kids through Jackson High School. You see me at Jackson quite often in sporting events, and teachers and coaches, they all know me. And my son's pretty recognized out at Jackson for his baseball talents. He played in the majors. So, but my ability there, let's see. I think my strengths, I'm a visionary person. When you lead a company, I believe in a reverse pyramid, which is the leaders at the bottom and you lead up in this way. I'm a servant leader in my vision. I don't try to tell people what to do. I just try to put the boundaries, or I call them the bumpers on the side, and kind of guide people and let them create their own direction, and hopefully to keep them within the boundaries. And I did that pretty successfully. So strengths-wise in leadership, I think I'm pretty good at collaborating. I just finished a project with the Sound Transit, where they were going to do eminent domain through our church. And that was a pretty difficult project, but I managed to work with all the leaders in the city council in Everett and Sound Transit in Seattle, and we managed to come up with an alternative plan to not go through our church. So that took about a year and a half of my time. So that was a very challenging time.
Thank you.
For the next question, why are you interested in becoming a board member, and what in the realm of public education is of special interest to you? What do you see as your long-term goal in this position?
My interest is because I want to give back. That's the purpose of my life now, is giving back. I feel that's important. Get teary-eyed, because my family did that. I mean, I was in the school district a lot, and that's, I feel like I'm gifted there to be able to give my time. Time is the most valuable asset we all have. You know that, and so if we can give my time, that's a good thing to do. I think that I would like to, what's really interesting to me is alternative education. My dad being a principal, I was kind of mainstream, and back in those days, you just kind of went from class to class, and my dad made sure I had the hardest teachers all the way up. I didn't understand that until I was in high school. He was at North Junior, and I went South Junior, and merged at Everett. But there was, I was a struggling student. I wasn't a very good student. I was lucky to get C's, even to pass. My dad, read this, try to do this. And I just couldn't figure out, back then, I was just kind of being pushed. And some teacher said to my dad, "Have you ever had to test him yet for dyslexia?" And no, we didn't even know what that was back then, practically. And so we hadn't tested. And believe it or not, I read backwards. I have my entire life. And so I immediately went to the Everett Community College and started doing reading machines and all this special reading. And I couldn't pass a test if my life depended. My comprehension level was just not there. Now, math was off the charts, but reading was very low. And so some teacher took interest in me and with my dad, and helped me learn how to get through how to read. And eventually I actually went to college and did pretty well. And that disability back then, I mean, I still struggle with today. From reading a question like this on the board, that's difficult for me to comprehend it. I have to read it 2 or 3 times, but that's okay. I've learned how to do with that and managed to work with that my entire life. So when we look at the education, I look at people with outside the mainstream. I like people who, I've worked with kids my entire life that have disabilities. I right now mentor 3 young men. They're in their 30s, but their mental state's 14, 15. But I just try to help them through life. I just love doing that. So my special interest probably in that area is to look at all those areas where I could work and help. And my long-term goal, I really don't know when you say long-term. I'm like loving to live through today at its presence. But I know this is a 6-month term. And I think I'd like to, my question to find out what you're looking for in that 6-month term, because that's obviously a short period of time. My goal would be to continue on if that's what we felt the collaborative, that would be the right thing to do.
Yeah.
As a fellow board member, what kind of relationship would you like to develop with and among the other board members?
I'm an early riser. Do you like to have breakfast together? I love doing that. I love one-on-one breakfasts. I do that with I make that a habit, at least someone every week, and just to get to know people and hang out with people and just share my life and other people sharing our lives. I'm all about going deep in relationships. So that would be important to me, not just to sit around a board and not be to be impersonal. I'd want to get to know your story. I'd like to know my story. I'd like to know your story. I've read a little bit about each of you and as much as I could. And you all have different backgrounds and different types of where you've come from. And I mean, that's important for me to learn and to understand and to grow with you. So as a board member, I think you have to work as a team. I've worked with large teams in my work history. And when you think you have it by yourself, have to get it together, that's when you want to get knocked down on the knees and you realize you need a team. My family has taught me that. When you want to talk about when my ego starts climbing up, the first person to knock me down is my wife. And so it's important to check those kind of things out at the door and to understand humility. And I think the best gift of a leader is a good listener. And I hope that I could be a good listener and and to learn from that.
All right, question number 4. What do you consider the strong points and greatest challenges facing students, educators, and the district today?
That's a great question. I think greatest challenges are kids trying to find their identity. Kids are finding to seek their identity in all the wrong places, you know. Cell phones, social media, friends that they call friends that really aren't. I have a granddaughter that every day is struggling because she goes to school every day because kids pick on her because she wants to find a friend and find out who she is amongst her peers. And she's only in the 4th grade. I struggle with that. So I would like to see, the things with strong points, the challenges our kids right now is learning social skills, learning to talk face to face, eye to eye, be able to get rid of the cell phone, get rid of social media, understand those. Identity doesn't come from what other people say. Identity comes from what's inside and who you really are. And when negative things are said, that's not your identity. Positive things are your identity, who you are. And I'd want to see where we need to really build on the positiveness in kids. I remember a couple teachers I had, and that's years ago, but there are key teachers that learned to find out how to say positive things to kids that just wanted to continue to strive within their classrooms. And I think my sister was one of those. She was pretty well known in the school. That she did a really good job at it, Heatherwood, for 30-some years. And she's taught me a lot about what the difficulties of a teacher. Teachers are difficult. I think they're the unsung heroes of our schools. You know that. I mean, I would have been a teacher, but you know what? I didn't think I could make enough money to survive. So I went off into private business. I mean, that was my goal, was to be a teacher, but I didn't. And so now, you know, teaching today, trying to find good educators and train them and support them, man, I support teachers like anything. Whatever it takes to do to support them, lift them up, encourage them. I don't know, not to pat myself on the back, but at Heatherwood, I used to take pizzas out to them every month by the teacher's lunch, just by lunch, because they deserve that. So that's a challenge. I would say that. Did the red light go on? Oh, I don't know if I got more to say about that other than there are a lot of challenges, and I think identities and finding their place is really important.
Sorry. Our district includes several cultures and communities. What suggestions do you have for how the district can best hear from and communicate with our richly diverse population? And what does equity mean to you?
Cultures, ethnic groups, I may have gray hair, and I will tell you that probably in a lot of years, I didn't understand this question. I took a trip overseas, and first starting when my son had played professional baseball, and we traveled in the southern states. And I saw cultures I never even knew existed, and I was just humbled by it. And one side of the road would have houses with no windows, no doors, and dirt. Another side of the road would be houses with beautiful driveways and backyards, and literally within viewing each other. And I learned back that kind of lifestyle and those kind of cultures exist out there. They aren't very few. I grew up, we're in Everett. I mean, but now the diversity, I think there's 52 different, if I remember right, was what number I was given, is 52 different ethnic groups that are involved in our school district today. Is that about right? That's up more than that now? Oh, gosh. And I had the privilege to really be humbled by it, is that my business, I was asked to do a sales talk in mortgage down in Tacoma. And I went down there, it was a luncheon, and in the back of the room were these two Muslim kids that were in their 20s, and they just kind of played around, and while I did this talk, and I was really frustrated. And one got up and left, and got on his phone, and when it got done, I thought, man, how disrespectful. And a week later, they called me up and says, hey, we want you to come down and do business with us. I go, what in the world? You guys just ridiculed. I mean, you're in that, and I was really honest. You guys didn't pay attention. Oh, no. In that time period, I had this aha experience that culture that I thought was being disrespectful, they weren't being respectful. That's just kind of who they are. And those people, I have about 15 Muslim kids. I call them kids because they're in their 30s. That now invite me to their homes, to their parents, to dinners. I'm part of their family, and I just cherish the idea that we have been able to, that I was able to understand a different culture that I didn't even know. I thought these were people were disrespectful, and they weren't. They come over to my lake house every year. I'd have them over for 3 or 4 days, and we just have fun together. And so the diversity to me is really important, understanding every culture. Working in Young Life in a ministry, you reach out to all cultures. That's our motto, is to go out where people aren't. So, and then what does equity mean?
And I'm sorry your time is up.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
all right.
I'm sorry.
For the next question, what would be your response if you were personally requested by a parent to remove a book that parent found to be offensive from a school library?
Oh, boy. Well, I would sit down with the parent and try to hear them out and understand why they believe that. And try to really understand where they're coming from. Again, I come from growing up, literally, things were, in our house, pretty black and white. And I've now had to stretch my boundaries and stretch my understanding of things. And so I would want to hear that person out real clearly and ask questions. And it's the importance of what would be, why would we want to remove the book? And maybe we talk it from different angles and different ways to understand it. I have beliefs that I'm sure are different from other people's beliefs, and that's very common. And so that doesn't mean mine's right or theirs or mine's wrong. It means that we need to come together and figure out what the common ground is. And if it was really something that I felt that was important, I would bring it up to the next level, the next step. I'm not even sure what that next step would be at this point, if that would be going to the principal of the school or the school board and say, what about this book? And be challenged by them, look at it and get an overall opinion of it. And so it would definitely have to be a collaborative decision on how that would be resolved. But I want to be a good listener.
The board works closely with the superintendent to ensure alignment between the strategic plan, the school board's goals, and the superintendent's goals. How would you work with the board and superintendent to ensure that both the board and superintendent are working towards the best outcomes for students?
Again, I think it's being a good listener. I think that this role, I believe, it's not a full-time job. Myself and he's a full-time job and probably more than a full-time job. And I think that role, and I've known several superintendents in the school district that back when that we have a lot of conversation with, you really need to support them. I mean, that's a very difficult role that you do, and your team. And it's not a one-man job. And I'm sure that because there's so many things that come at him in the position he's in, the fingers are pointed at you. They're not pointed at the people that you may have had be in charge of something that went wrong, but you're carrying the load, and everything the buck stops with you. And I understand as a business owner, when you have 250 people working for you, I mean, it's not a school district by any means, but that's a lot of people. And you have to have a lot of people you have to give authority to make right decisions and trusting them. But you also have to support them when the bad decisions are being made. You got to be able to support that staff. And so I'd want to be a good listener and a good supporter. And then again, if there are things that can be walked out and talked out, I think my years of experience in business, especially when it comes to maybe budgets or construction or other things that I have some experience at, I think I could probably give some pretty good direction or advice in that way. The board, I think, it's a team effort. I understand that too. And I think one of my questions I'm going to ask you is what you're looking for in another board to fit in. What are the strengths and weaknesses? That's the question I've got for you later. But I think that I need to understand that, because I think it's important to know what the strengths are of each person and what the weaknesses are, so how to support the superintendent and his team.
All right, the next question we have for you is, please describe how you feel about the use of capital bonds and levies to fund school district projects, and what is your approach to balancing the financial needs of the district with the potential impact on the taxpayer?
I've knocked on a lot of doors for school bonds. I'll let you know that. When you have a sister and a father in the school district, you do that. And I'm a real strong supporter, because there's not enough money. We know the fundraising that goes on the foundations at every school, and you've been all a part of it as well. There are needs, and having levies and school bonds, and obviously balancing budgets is very important. But you have to have the revenue to support it, the needs that are out there. So I have no issues when it comes to taxes, bonds, levies, if the need is there. And I know within this school district, I've done for a lot of years, I've learned a lot about what the needs are. I mean, I was a crazy pole vaulter right down here in this track right down here when we used styrofoam bags with wooden crates underneath that when I went up there and landed and almost broke my back several times. I just wanted a pit to land in and wouldn't hurt myself. Well, it wasn't in the budget. And so guess what? We went out and did fundraising and everything else to get the kind of equipment just so people could be, could be athletes on the track down here. So I know the importance of that.
Thank you. Almost done. So the regular board meetings take place twice a month. Work study sessions often take place twice a month as well. There can also be time-sensitive meetings held during the workday, such as this. Is your schedule flexible enough to allow you to attend these meetings, and will you make them a priority?
The answer is yes, because I'm actually trying to find things to do in my life, to repurpose in my life. I don't believe in retirement. I'm an early riser. I'm way up. I get up real early, and I look at every day as a challenge. I want to do something. I want to be, at the end of the day, I want to say that I've accomplished something that was fruitful in the purpose of my life. And so being in meetings, I wouldn't be here unless I felt I could fit that role and be an asset to the school district. I couldn't have said that a couple years ago, but I would really take on that responsibility.
Thank you. Last question. Do you plan to run for board position 3 in the 2025 election?
I would say the intention is yes, but that's 6 months away, right? You may find you don't like me. I don't know. I would hope the answer would be yes. My heart is, when I first came out, you said it was a 2-year, 2.5 years, something like that, when was the first memo or something. And so I was planning for 2.5 years, or whenever that was, 2027 or something, and then you corrected it, saying it was 6 months. I'm fine with that. If you find and we find that I'm good for 6 months and I can fill that role for a period of time and there's something better, somebody better or somebody wants a challenge for that, I'm fine with that too. I'm not the smartest person in the room or the most talented person in the room, and if there's someone better, then they should take that position. But if that's me, I would love to do it.
Well, yeah, and I apologize that we were all blindsided by that because we thought it would be this. So whoever is appointed, the filing is next week if you want to maintain the position. So even though the election isn't November, not that we're requiring that everybody, that whoever we pick file next week, but it's just asking the question if they would file next week for the November election.
You have to get it in before next week.
You have to get in before next Friday.
Oh, okay.
For whoever the person is.
Glad you said that.
Yeah, that's what, and that would all be clarified to whomever we do appoint. And those that don't get appointed, if they want to run, that'll all be clarified. But we do apologize for that miscommunication. And so then the last question is really one that you can ask of us. Are there things you would like to share that maybe you haven't already said that you might feel are important for us? Or do you have any questions for the board? And then we'll answer them based on whoever we think could answer it best. And you have 10 minutes for this section.
Okay. One of my skills from the past, I try to do it, is I'm a sailboat nut. I grew up sailing my entire life. I've done 10 trips to Hawaii on my sailboat. And in those 10 trips, it's when you leave Victoria, it's a race to Maui. When you leave Victoria and you head across the ocean, if you're 1 degree off, you'll miss the islands. And so and back then we didn't have to GPS, we had to use a sextant. So every morning you're getting up and taking the sextant, find out the stars and line it up and see where you're at. And in that trip, it takes about 2 weeks, you run into a lot of storms, a lot of bad weather and stuff. And every night it can be, you're just all over the map, you're steering by a compass. And I use this analogy because this is kind of who I am. I live by a compass. I'll tell you that. But I have a lot of storms in my life, and we all do. And during the night when you have those storms, you get up in the morning, you check your compass, and you do a course correction. Because if you're 1 degree off, you're going to miss the mark. You don't want to miss the island. And so when I sail to Hawaii, every day I would get up and make sure to check the course and make a course correction. If it was 212 degrees or 210 degrees, I'd make it up because we didn't want to miss the mark. And that's how I live my life. I make screw ups. I make mistakes. My wife will tell you that. Good thing you didn't ask her to come here. But I hope to tell you that I also make corrections and willing to admit when I'm wrong, and hopefully continue down the right path in that as a compass and point and have purpose in life. That's kind of who I am and what I'm about. I'm a visionary person. I just invented something. I had a patent, and I'm seeing if I'm going to make where it's going to get made and all that stuff. I'm having fun doing that kind of stuff. So a little bit about me is in my purpose of my life is you will get full transparency. That's for sure for me. I have nothing to hide. I have no motives. I want to just come and be able to serve. I hope to be a servant and a good listener in that role, if selected. But I do have a question. What kind of characteristics or skill levels or culture are you looking for in this position to be fulfilled? Is there a particular voids that are missing, or is there a culture that you're looking for?
I think we really were sort of impressed with the 11 people that applied, and it's really nothing that's missing. It's really, I think, what could be added. And it's been very interesting to meet all of you today, to see who would be the best fit. But does anybody else have a different answer? I think we just want somebody that would serve.
I would agree with that. Echoing what you're saying, on a school board, there's a variety of views, and that diversity is a wonderful thing for discussion and perspective. And so there isn't one particular voice that we're looking for, but just passion about education, looking at the district as a whole, where the needs are, and looking out for the students.
Good. Well, I got the passion, I think. I'm sure in the history there. So, if selected in this, is there a mentorship? Is there someone who, when you just go behind, or you can look to and say, what do I step this direction or that direction, or what's that look like?
Yeah, the superintendent's office does have a very good structured onboarding program. Might be drinking through a fire hose for a little bit, but if you've ever read Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 Hours, it does take time, and give yourself time, ask questions. We do have 3 newer school board members up here. Does anybody have anything to add about what the learning has been like? Or we don't really have a mentorship, but the superintendent does meet with each of us one-on-one or 1 or 2, following the Open Public Meetings Act rules, and does coach us, especially newer board members. I've been here a long time, but I know he does a lot of coaching for newer board members. Yes, please.
I'll also add our organization, the Washington State School Directors Association, is a support organization for all 295 school districts around the state of Washington. And they have courses, classes that we can take part in. And they also have a new director group. So school directors from all over the state that are new to their role can connect with one another. So
that's good.
A lot of resources out there and a lot of support.
And we have a state meeting that we tend to go to every year, and they have a boot camp for new board members. It's sort of a half-day sort of orientation. I think we do a really good job here for a lot of that, but I know I valued it years ago.
Good. I guess this kind of falls in line with what you just said, but is there any particular assets that I could bring to the board that you are looking for in that regard, in terms of?
I think what it is we're a policy governance board, so we do have the board chair, whoever he or she is for the period, is the spokesperson for the board. So when you go, whoever we appoint, the most important thing is to know that we are a board of the whole. We are not like a city, like a council, where we're each, vying for our constituents. We serve as a full board, the entire district. And so you'll review the policies and know that, and we'll coach on that. But making sure that you went to Everett High, that's not who you support. Your sister taught at Heatherwood. I mean, we all have our biases for the schools our children or we went to, but just knowing that we need to love Hawthorne as much as we love Bark Creek. And that when we go out there into the community, we're to listen. And you've demonstrated that. And that's what I think is the most important value, is that you don't go out speaking on behalf of the board. You really are to listen. And I think that's, we've all probably misstepped once or twice, but we learn how to just let the superintendent's office deal with a lot of the things that we can't and shouldn't as a board.
Well, Hawthorne was my dad first started out with.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, great. Well, anything else?
Let's see. No, I think you've answered. I'd probably repeating myself, and so I just really want to let you know I appreciate this opportunity and privilege. I've never been interviewed before. I usually do the other way around. I didn't know what to expect, and you gave me some comfort and peace. I really appreciate that very much.
Well, thank you to your service in the district, and congratulations on your upcoming 13th grandchild. We have one more interview to do. We will then deliberate and make our decision today. You're welcome to stay, come back. You'll be notified regardless, but we don't expect anybody to stay. But thank you so much for your time.
I got Little League baseball games,
yeah,
grandkids.
And it's beautiful.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
We're going to return from recess, and thank you for letting us speed this up a little bit. At this time, we would like to call our next candidate for an interview, and candidate for an interview. Ms. Chatters, would you please step up to the podium? I would like you to direct you to the PowerPoint you see on the screen. The interview will have two parts. The first part will be us asking you questions, for which you'll have 3 minutes to answer each of those questions. The second part will be for any questions that you might have for the board, and we've allocated 10 minutes for this section. You do not need to adjust the microphone that's there on the podium because it is quite potent or sensitive. There are 3 lights located on the lectern. You'll see a green light appear after the question is asked that identifies that you have your 3 minutes. A yellow light will come on that you have 30-second, with your 30-second warning. A red light will signify that your time has expired. We'll begin with question 1, and each of us will take turns asking the questions. And I will begin. So explain your experience and abilities and how those will enhance your being an effective board member. What do you consider to be your greatest strengths, and how will you use them to be an effective leader and advocate for education?
Thank you for that question. Thank you for allowing me to be here. It is really, truly an honor to be able to even interview for this position, so thank you. My experience and abilities, well, my professional background is in strategic planning, business operations. I run a small business as my day job, so I would say that I am very well versed in taking a project and, oh, I'm sorry, I accidentally hit a button here with my portfolio. I would say that I'm really well versed in crafting a strategic vision with a group, because a strategic vision cannot exist alone. It must exist in the framework of the folks who are part of the organization and part of who the organization intends to serve. So evaluating factors like, why do we even exist? What are our long-term goals? What are our core values? How does this strategic vision serve those core values? Are we in alignment with our long-term goals in the strategic vision that we're crafting? What kind of tools do we need to make it happen? Do we need to employ new technology? Do we need to consider capital facilities upgrades? Do we need to consider a revamping of our staffing mix? Like really just getting down to the nuts and bolts of how do we how do we bring that strategic vision to fruition? Not just how do we craft it, but what are the practical application steps? So that's really where my professional experience lies. My personal experience lies in community advocacy. I have 4 amazing children, and part of the reason why they are amazing is actually due to the Everett Public Schools. All 4 of them are proud graduates of Cascade High School. And so I have been an advocate for my children in the context of just being a community member, understanding who's out there, knowing my kids' peers, understanding the challenges that they're facing, and loving our schools enough to challenge our educators to, hey, here's something I've identified. Here's an issue that this kiddo is experiencing. How can you help me come to a solution here? And so that's kind of how I got my start in community advocacy, is really working with the schools to identify solutions, because it's not just the complaint, it's the progress towards a solution and collaborating with the folks who are part of this system of delivery of whatever service you're challenging, and really coming to a conclusion that allows for a solution and a pathway forward. I try to employ those skills in the community work that I engage in now on the Planning Commission, on the Human Rights Commission, with the NAACP. I've been fortunate enough to run for office where folks have felt comfortable sharing their stories with me. And so really just trying to take all of that information and bring it to whatever space we are trying to craft those strategic visions for the future, whether it's for the community or whether it's for a business. I think I bring a lot of tools to really help us chart a course that's going to bring us to success.
Great, thank you, and we're going to fix those slides.
I'm sorry about
No, we didn't want to interrupt you. We were trying to do it with the remote control and it wasn't working, so we'll,
Thank you.
okay.
Here we go, perfect. Question number 2. Why are you interested in becoming a board member, and what in the realm of public education is of special interest to you? What do you see as your long-term goal in this position?
Initially, when I started stepping into the realm of public service in a potentially elected capacity, I was targeting city council. And a lot of that has to do with my interest in economic development. Some of it also had to do with the fact that I had children in this district, and I take the role of being an agent of something or someone, an organization or a group, very seriously. And when my children were here in the school district, I was going to be their agent, and I did not want there to be any potential conflict between a board position that I might seek and the needs of my children and their peers in the community that I might want to advocate for, because I feel very strongly that the role of a board member is not to be an activist, that I don't personally believe that that is the role, and so I never wanted to be in that position of potential conflict. So the reason why I would like to be on the board now is because I am free of that internal struggle I would have to ensure that I don't have that conflict, as my youngest just graduated last year. And I bring a lot of tools to the table, a lot of tools from a pretty big toolbox to understand community members, to help bring their voices to the table, to help amplify their concerns. And I want to be a person who the community can come to and say, hey, we have something going on, and maybe we're not even sure how to articulate it. How can we raise visibility around this? And I want to be a conduit for raising that visibility and challenging our systems to solve the problems of the community, because I believe that they can. My experience has been that you got to find the right folks. You got to find the folks who have the right expertise. You match them together with the folks experiencing the problem, and you can come up with some really excellent, innovative solutions. And I believe our kids deserve that. They deserve excellent and innovative solutions, and I want to be a part of delivering that. So I would say that is why I would like to pursue this position. As far as my relationship, the realm of public education and my long-term goals, I think about what is the purpose of public education, and it is to build a well-rounded society where we are kind of advancing ourselves as human beings, but it also has some practical elements of teaching our kids how to survive capitalism. And I deal with young adults now because that is the age range my kids are in. And I know that our young adults are concerned. There's a lot of changes going on in the world. Some of them are very scared. And I want to see our K-12 K-12 system support them in terms of their understanding of what are we doing all this stuff in K-12 for? What is the through line that's going to carry us through into our early career or later career? Help clarify what that pathway is and help our kids graduate feeling strong and powerful in their ability to compete in this world and build the lives that they want.
As a fellow board member, what kind of relationship would you like to develop with and among the other board members?
One of the questions that I think we were asked in the questionnaire had to do with disagreement on the board. I do not think disagreement is inherently negative. I am well versed in dealing with teams, building effective teams, managing effective teams, and you cannot have a team where everybody agrees. You will not produce a superior product, service, or anything if your team members all agree. So I would like to foster a relationship amongst board members where we respect, appreciate, understand each other's strengths, where we know when we can lean on someone, hey, this person's really good in this policy area, let's consult with them. Or, you know, that's not my strength. Let's talk to someone else and see if we can gather more information, because a team that is homogenous is not an effective team. So I would like to build relationships where we have many different perspectives and respect for those different perspectives, and not just respect, but a desire to hold those different perspectives in all of the matters that we are looking at, in all of the policy decisions. Sometimes I feel like it's seen as a negative to gather a new perspective. It is not a negative from my experience. It is deeply positive. And sometimes it's the willingness to go and get those alternative perspectives that really prepares you when there's a wrinkle. Plans don't always go. They're not always executed exactly as you lay them out on paper. And when you've taken the time to gather those alternative perspectives and foster those relationships where you can have conversations where you disagree and not approach it from a standpoint of ego, but approach it from a standpoint of, tell me more about that. Tell me how you know that. Oh, you've researched this. Great, direct me to the data. I would love to read that too. It's more of a collaborative, a sharing type experience. And my experience professionally as well as in my community work has been, that is how we get to the best decisions. That is how we come to a solution where there is buy-in. Because that's another element of teamwork. A team can come up with ideas and they have not consulted the stakeholders. There is no buy-in, and you can put out the prettiest plan you want, but because you did not consult with all of the folks who believe that they are a part of this and should be a part of it and want to have their voices heard throughout the process of setting your strategy or your plan, you've wasted your time. So I would like to foster relationships where disagreement is not a negative. It is a matter of doing good work for the people.
The next question we have for you is, what do you consider the strong points and greatest challenges facing students, educators, and the district today?
Okay, so I prepared for this one because I did a little thing called a SWOT analysis, which anyone who has been through business school has done ad nauseum. But actually, it's kind of an example of something you learn in school that has practical applications. So I did a little bit of a SWOT analysis on the district, and I think that the improvement in graduation rates has been just an excellent thing that this board has helped foster. The emphasis on social emotional learning, that is now incorporated into the strategic plan, that is so important. Our children need that support, and that this board has recognized it is incredible work. Just really working to continue advancing the academic opportunities, working to foster more community engagement. I know that has also been something that this board has been turning its attention towards, and also building new skills. I think there is some recognition that our economy is changing, that our kids are going to be facing a different world than we faced when we were fresh out of high school or fresh out of college. And I think that this board has demonstrated that it is very open and really proactive about helping to lay that groundwork for our kids. So I think that those are strengths in this district. And I am so pleased to have been a parent in this district where our board has turned its attention to these important things. As far as challenges, we do have an equity gap, especially in leadership. there is an equity gap. That is something that that is a challenge, and I would like us to turn our attention to it. Budget constraints, resource allocation, particularly with the challenges going on at the state and federal government levels. We're going to have to keep an eye on that. That is going to be a challenge that we have to navigate at some point to some degree for our community. The cost of living, as someone who runs a small business, trying to hire and retain staff and give them a benefits and salary package that they feel is respectful, it allows them to live, to survive and meet their basic needs. That is a challenge, folks, and that is definitely something that this school board will have to contend with going forward in the future, is how do we balance the needs of the resources that are available and the needs of the folks who work in this system, who we need in order to carry out the work of educating our kids and giving them what they feel is a respectful way to live based on the labor that they provide. I would say that supporting our educators, our teachers have had a lot of challenges throughout COVID, post-COVID. We hear different perspectives from our educators who are deeply concerned about some of the ways that our kids have been impacted and how that is showing up in the classrooms. So continuing to support them and ensure that they're able to deliver that quality education to the community. I think that is a challenge as well.
Okay, our district includes several cultures and communities. What suggestions do you have for how our district can best hear from and communicate with our richly diverse population? And what does equity mean to you?
This question is very interesting because I am part of the richly diverse population. Oftentimes when I hear these questions asked, the response is, well, we reach out to them. I'm not a them, I'm a we, I'm an us. So part of that is bringing us into these spaces where decision making is happening. That is definitely part of it. It's not good enough for a body to just decide, well, we'll reach out and ask diverse populations. A truly diverse organization that cares about equity, they want to bring those folks in because they understand that there is value in that. There is a huge, in the business world, there's a huge return on your investment if you seek a board and leadership that is diverse in the way that they think, the cultures that they understand. It opens new markets. It is incredible for profitability. If you look at the numbers, a diverse leadership team in an organization, it is a value-added benefit. It is not something that you do, oh, well, we're just helping folks out. No, you're helping yourself out when you bring diversity in the room when you are making decisions, because you are more likely to get at a decision that ultimately will be good, that will be fruitful, or in the case of industry, profitable. So some of it is maybe reframing ideas around what it means to support equity and diversity. So that's some of the work that I try to do and how I communicate with folks in the community, just helping them understand that we truly are all interconnected and we will sink or we will swim together. And most folks, I think, when you really talk it through with them, they tend to see it pretty similarly, and that has been reflective of some of the perspectives that they have found in their own personal lives, and maybe they just haven't really extended it to an organizational level. But the community values different perspectives. And so I think that that's an important part. As far as what equity means to me, equity means that when you have a need, it's met. And you don't necessarily have the same need as someone else, but that's not the point. The point is you have a need, and so let's attempt to meet that need. So a system that holds equity for all of those involved is a system that is it operates at a systemic level, but it also tries to see the individual and see what individuals may need in order to provide them with that access point, which can be a real challenge, especially when you're dealing with a large public agency, to balance those two things. So I would say that for me, equity means doing that hard work of balancing that system-wide overview of what the system can provide with the individual needs of those who we are trying to serve with the system and ensure that they all have the same opportunity or pathway to opportunity.
Thank you.
For the next question, What would be your response if you were personally requested by a parent to remove a book that parent found to be offensive from a school library?
Okay, I love this one because you guys asked this one last time you appointed someone. So I got a little heads up on preparing for this question because it is an excellent question. It is, in fact, something that is happening in many school districts around the country. So I think it is a wonderful question to ask. The first thing, of course, is we want to acknowledge that this parent has a concern. If you're going to open a productive dialogue, it has to open with acknowledgement. You must acknowledge that someone has a concern. That doesn't mean you're agreeing with them, but you must acknowledge someone if you want to have a productive dialogue. So that is step number one. For me, step number two is always go to the policy. These organizations, whatever organization you may be representing, from my perspective, they have policies. So I want to know exactly what that policy says, because I don't want to mislead someone by giving them pathways or solutions that don't align with the policy. So that is the next step for me, is really checking on that. And again, I'll circle back to the fact that my belief about the role of a school board member is not to be an activist. That is not the role. And so as much as maybe I might deep within myself think, yeah, get that one out of here. For whatever reason, I don't tend to be a book banner. But if I did, I feel that it's the responsibility of a board member to set that aside, because an educational system is not about an individual's personal like or dislike. It is about serving the community in a broader sense, and it is about trusting our professional educators, trusting their expertise. And so there are processes, of course, to deal with challenges to curriculum. Parents have options to opt their children out of curriculum. So really pointing the concerned parent towards these processes and letting them know what their options are to have this issue evaluated, or to have this book screened. Perhaps they have a legitimate concern and no one has really fully screened this book. So I would try to remain neutral in a way, because again, not my job to be their activist. It is my job to help usher a parent through a system where they have a concern about their child and help them find a pathway to resolution. And maybe that's not banning of the book. Maybe that is helping them understand the purpose of the library and the library system and what other kids might want or need access to. And simultaneously, how they can protect their child from access to something that they deem inappropriate. So it's treating the family with respect, hearing them, not for the purpose of giving them a response, but truly hearing what is behind their concern and trying to give them a pathway where that concern can be addressed respectfully.
The board works closely with the superintendent to ensure alignment between the strategic plan, the school board's goals, and the superintendent's goals. How would you work with the board and superintendent to ensure that both the board and superintendent are working towards the best outcomes for students?
This is a really important question because I've seen situations of board overreach where a board of an organization mistakes their governance role for a management of the organization role. And it never goes well. So I think it is important as a board member to understand what your role is and to build a collaborative and trusting relationship with the superintendent, because it is the superintendent who we need to rely on to carry out their job of managing the school district. So part of this is just really understanding those roles and understanding those guardrails that are set up for very good reasons as to why the roles are constructed that way. I think we would have to have open, regular communication, the ability to express to the superintendent and have the superintendent feel free to express to us, hey, this is an area of concern, or even, hey, this is an area that we're doing excellent in, let's do more of this. But really keeping those open lines of communication. Having clarity around expectations. The board does, as a governing body, have the ability to set benchmarks, establish those expectations, and hold the superintendent accountable for those. As someone who sometimes has to hold staff accountable for things, one thing I don't believe in is gotcha moments. Oftentimes, an error is not really an error. It's a difference of perspective, a difference in the way that a task is being carried out, and a few simple questions can clarify that and get everyone back onto that pathway to collaboration. Holding on to those things and allowing them to be, well, when it's time to review your performance, we're going to address this. I don't believe in that. I don't believe it is an effective way to run a team, and you very much need to operate as a team with the superintendent because that person is the gateway to the delivery of all of those excellent services that we are here trying to design for our children. So I think a lot has to do with maintaining a supportive, respectful, collaborative, communicative relationship, and also keeping an eye on progress, ensuring that as a board member that you are carrying out your duties of oversight, because I have seen that as well, a board that has not engaged in those oversight processes when they should have occurred. So understanding the role of the board and really digging in and doing that work, but not crossing boundaries into the management side of running the school district, which is, according to our policies, our documents, that is the purview of the superintendent. So really not crossing boundaries in that way.
All right, the next question we have for you is please describe how you feel about the use of capital bonds and levies to fund school district projects, and what is your approach to balancing the financial needs of the district with the potential impact on the taxpayer?
This is a difficult one because increases in taxes can impact family budgets. That is a very real thing. And when the community is not clear on the ways in which the money that you're asking for is going to be used, you have a problematic situation on your hands. We had a levy attempt to pass here in the city of Everett, and that was a major problem with the way the levy was rolled out. The community was not clear on how these funds were going to be used. There was not nearly enough outreach and communication. The narratives that ended up entering the picture may or may not have been accurate because when this levy was rolled out, it was not communicated, and it was not respectful of the types of questions and challenges that folks who are very sensitive to having a few extra dollars taken out of their pocket, because we have to acknowledge that we have a lot of students who are dealing with economic challenges at home. That is a very real stressor. So I think that you must demonstrate to the community through the work that you have done, showing the work that you have done, explaining, articulating. If someone isn't understanding, take another pass at it. There's a million ways to explain something. We can't just choose one. We have to be willing to explore another way to communicate if we are not getting through. I think that the public wants to be engaged in these sorts of things. I think that they want to support our schools. I don't think I've ever run across a person that said, I don't want to support my schools. At least they're not in the circles that I run in. So we want to respect their stated goal of supporting the schools while really listening to what impact a potential bond or levy might have for them from their perspective. And sometimes it's correcting that perspective, helping them understand what it actually will mean, showing them numbers. And we have to be willing to explain and re-explain so the public is clear on what the ask is. I think there also needs to be demonstration that we are willing to seek alternative funds, not just through a levy or increase or a bond. I mean, there are certainly capital projects probably going to have a bond, but for some of the programming, perhaps it's not always a levy increase, or perhaps we just need to show that we've gone for like state and federal grants to fill those gaps. Or there are a lot of opportunities to partner with various industries or businesses, particularly when we're talking about workforce development issues and creating programs that build that pipeline. Do we have opportunities to perhaps have some private investment in those workforce development pipelines that could benefit our students? So I think we should demonstrate that we have done our best to seek funding wherever we can before taking it out of the pockets of our working families.
Almost done. Our regular board meetings take place twice a month. Work study sessions often take place twice a month as well. There can also be time-sensitive meetings held during the workday, such as this. If your schedule is your schedule flexible enough to allow you to attend these meetings, and will you make them a priority?
Yes, and yes.
Some of our questions are like that.
Thank you. This is the last question. Do you plan to run for board position 3 in the 2025 election?
I do. I have filed with the PDC. Filing week is coming up very shortly here. I have run elections before. I've run campaigns before, so I'm quite familiar with the process. I am ready to kick off my campaign tomorrow. I would love to follow in the footsteps of some of our esteemed board members who had the opportunity to be appointed and run and defend their seat. I believe President Mitchell, I think you were appointed in 2014, just after Director Mason. Director Herman, I think you were a 2022 appointment, and Director Revelinsky, I think you were a 2023 appointment. So I would love to follow in your footsteps and have an opportunity to learn, to serve, and also to defend this seat, which I believe that I can do, and I intend to do.
Well, thank you. We apologize because we thought this process wasn't going to make people have to file, so we do apologize because we were all blindsided. So thank you for that. This now takes us to the last question, which is, you have 10 minutes for this. Is there anything you would like to share that we may not have asked that you feel is important for us in our deliberation? Or do you have any questions from, actually it's an and, do you have any questions for the board? And you have 10 minutes for this.
Thank you. I would say that it is important for us to demonstrate to our students that we're not just interested in one single story. Many of you might be familiar with an author, Adichie, with some of her work around what does it mean to just only tell a single story. And if you're not, go talk to a librarian. I'm sure they'll fill you in. That means when we're looking at leadership, when we're looking at policy crafting, when we're looking at governance, we should embrace the fact that there are many different stories. And that is what I try to bring when I am part of a commission, when I am part of a board. I try to be a conduit for inviting in those different stories because they matter, number one, and number two, they are often a source of excellent material to solve a problem. Sometimes you don't know the solution because you just haven't talked to enough people, heard it from enough angles, considered enough different ways of approaching an issue. So I think there is so much value in rejecting the idea that there is a single story or a single pathway to anything. And that is something that I would very much like to bring to this board, is the skills and the desire to incorporate as many stories into the work that we do, as many perspectives into the work that we do, because I believe very sincerely that it will benefit our kids tremendously to set that example. And I would like to be part of setting that example. I do have a couple of questions for you, if you don't mind. How would you describe the working relationships between you all?
I'll begin, but I appreciate the fact that you said something about, having disagreements. The nice thing that I think in my years on the board is that we can disagree, but rarely, I say that rarely, very rarely, are we disagreeable. And I think that's the more important thing, that you can see each other's perspective, Sometimes we do get a little bit passionate, but your word I don't think we do that. But I'd really like to hear from somebody else about how you think we work together up here.
I find us very collaborative. I think that we really consider where each of us is coming from, and that we all are different perspectives individually ourselves. And I think that makes for a fairly well-rounded board, especially when we're unified and speaking as one.
I think it works because we all come from the common ground of really being focused on improving student outcomes. We all believe in that wholeheartedly, and that gets us pretty far interpersonally, I think.
Thank you for that.
Thank you for that. One of the outcomes of running for anything is that you get an opportunity to talk to a lot of people, and I'll tell you, I've heard from families what their desires are for their kids, and it has never included things like, I want my kids to be a pawn in someone's political agenda. That has never been an ask. As different as families can be, their goals for their children are essentially the same. They want their kids to have a respectful, dignified educational experience. They want that educational experience to translate into opportunity, and they want their children to have agency and control in their lives to build something that they are proud of. And I really appreciate that you all are approaching this from different angles. Because as many differences as we have so many threads that tie us together as well. If there have been conflicts or disagreements, what has been your method for working through them, for resolving them?
I guess our most important thing is that because we act as a board of the whole, that there have been votes that have been a 3-2 vote or a 4-1 vote, but once the vote is made, you support the decision of the board. And there have been times that I've been on the losing end of I've been the 2, and there's been times that, and I just have to suck it up. And I think I don't know if I've ever heard of a case, at least in any recent year, that we haven't behaved that way. But we sometimes will have lively discussions up here, and sometimes a motion gets made so that the discussion can sort of be paused a little bit. That's very rare. Usually it's pretty collegiate.
I just want to second that. With 5 votes, I've also been on sometimes the 3 side, sometimes the 2 side, but I respect my colleagues and the process. And one of the other fundamental elements, I would say, is sort of just that concept, and I'm sure you've used this as well. Speak up when there's an issue. Don't hold something in. Once you have that discussion, once you've come to a conclusion, the board has taken a vote, you respect it and you move on as a board.
The other thing too is that you'll have time with this. We each have time with the superintendent, one-on-one or 2-on-1. So you mentioned something about the gotchas. We call it no surprises. So different terminology for the same thing. But the superintendent will sort of get our temperature before something if something comes forward, so that up here the community isn't surprised by something, or he's not surprised by something, and so that it is constant communication. Following OSPI, Open Public Meeting Act rules, because we have to do everything in public or in those one-on-one kind of times. But that's where we also make sure that there's no surprises for the community.
I appreciate that. As someone who's had the privilege of working with some community facing boards and commissions, and for example, the Planning Commission, on occasion we'll get a full gallery of folks. And in order to serve the community best, it is best for the commissioners to be able to not have those surprise moments. Let's focus on serving the people. So I very much appreciate what you said. Thank you, President Mitchell. Thank you, Jen. I'm sorry, Director Herman. Thank you for your input on that. and I guess this is kind of a community interest question because I am hearing this question a lot from the community in this particular moment. What do you feel are the biggest financial concerns that are going to be facing this district? I know we have some capital projects in the works to replace some aged infrastructure, and that's something that has been kind of ongoing part of the plan and the scheduling that you all have done to ensure that we don't have facilities that can't meet the needs of our kids. There's a lot of shakeup right now, and the community is concerned. Do you have anything you can share about what you see as the most challenging financial aspects coming down the pike?
Everybody's looking at Roman. I think that there's a lot of it's contentious right now with disruption at the federal level. I feel good though about what we've got, and I feel like we're in a really strong position to maintain our values. I think that we do have tremendous need for capital. I think our buildings and our facilities need a lot of love. I think that special education continues to be a struggle in this state to fully fund. Similarly with transportation and material supplies and operating costs, we've got to do better on that as a state. That's what I would that's my quick answer.
Yeah, I appreciated there's an op-ed in the Seattle Times today by the president of the school district, the School Administrators Association, about that the legislature is congratulating themselves a little bit on increasing special ed, but it was $200 and something million, but there's 290 something school districts in the state, so it's less than $1 million per school district when we ran an $8 million deficit last year. So it is, they congratulate themselves for special ed, and we still need more. So I appreciate that statement, because that's where it is just the state doesn't provide enough. And then the community, we cannot call on the community to do much more.
Thank you. That'll be helpful to me regardless of this process. That will be helpful to me in just having discussions in the community. So thank you for that information. I think the last thing I'll say in the last 14 seconds is I think it's important to know the values lens that someone is using, and I will tell you very transparently, my values lens is to center our children, to ensure that they are receiving the outcome from the system that they need. And I think that all things stem from that, centered around what your values are, what is your core mission. And I'm here for the mission, folks. So thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate you allowing me to be part of this process.
Yeah, well, thank you. You are our last interview today, so my closing is a little bit different. Congratulations on 4 kids going through Cascade. And whatever came after that, I don't know what the budget busters are. But we will have the public comment period. I appreciate the people that came. It'll start at 3:55, so we have a few minutes because that's what was published, in case somebody wants to come up later. We don't want to have closed it. After that period, it wasn't published. Oh, not that timing. So, okay. So then we could start the public comment a little bit sooner here. So I appreciate the people that came. Then we will go into deliberation. You can stay until the end, or we will notify everybody regardless. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Well, if it wasn't published, and I see people in the room, how many people do we have? Just 2 people want to speak, is that correct? I just want to make sure. There's 4 people in the room. I want to make sure I have 2 people on my list. Huh? Just 2. Okay. Okay, so this is our time for public comment. We do hold our board meetings. I have a speech, a typical speech, but I didn't bring it because I was traveling. We do hold our public meeting in public. We do ask you to be respectful, as we try to be respectful for the people that are here. Every person is given 3 minutes to speak, and it's the same rules that you guys heard when she was up there. 3 minutes to talk, 30-minute warning, and then we do need to cut everybody off at when the red light comes on. If it gets repetitive, but I imagine 2 people I will give this. It's just a matter if we had 14 people and they're all saying the same thing, it sort of just dilutes the whole. So I will call you up one at a time as you signed up. So Janice Green, if you would like to come up. When you come up, again, you don't need to adjust the microphone. It's very sensitive. You'll see the green light come up, and what you're saying is in public, because this is being recorded, so just honor that for the community's sake.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me here. I've been in this room a few times over the years, and sometimes with good issues and sometimes with issues that we've had to take on. And I have to say that the school district has been really good about helping resolve those issues when people come and have complaints or concerns. I am also an Everett resident, and we have 3 generations of my family that went through Everett School District, so I have my children and my grandchildren and myself when I started here. One of the things, the reason I'm here is that because I think that we need perspectives and life experiences from different people, because as I've gone through the school district and as I've position myself to help people through, a lot of it is a misunderstanding. It's cultural. It's like people don't necessarily feel comfortable talking to the people that are there in front of them. And so we have to do some advocacy there. I really appreciate the fact that Demi has worked with the Planning Commission. She's worked with the council. She's worked with in the community. She has proven over time that she's able to bridge emotions, bridge gaps in understanding. She's been supportive of young people, and I think that's something that we need, especially as we move into this era. We can see where our children are actually, I would just say, kind of under attack. And so that's what I see from my perspective. And I think having people in place that people can relate to, that others can relate to, that may understand what they're going through, their life experience, and they can communicate with, because honestly, you all are a rather threatening body when it comes to people having issues with their children. So it would be so much nicer, or so much, I think, better or open if we can have people that can be approachable. Not to say that you're not approachable. I've always been able to approach. But given the environment that we're in, and I know that there's with diversity and equity and all of those things, it's nice to see representation in leadership roles so that people can actually see that. And I'm not going to take my whole 3 minutes, but I did want to say that I really support Demi. I've watched her over the years. I've watched the commitment to the community. I've watched her work with the Human Rights Commission, with all the commissions that I don't know how much she's somewhere, everywhere, all the time, but always supportive, always easy to approach, and always gives an understanding, an integrated understanding. So she takes the opinions of others and in stride. And also when we say equity and the way that she explained it, it's all of us every time and what it is that we need. So thank you.
Thank you. And something I forgot to say is that public comment is a time for us to listen. We don't respond.
Oh.
I forgot to say that, so we'll say thank
okay.
you. So now I have Paula Ryan. And you'll have 3 minutes when the green light comes on, and then the yellow means you have 30 seconds.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, Everett School Board members. My name is Paula Ryan. I'm here today not in my capacity as a Everett City Council member, but in my capacity as a mom of 2 very cute kids that go to Jackson Elementary. I'm here today to express my strong support for the appointment of Demi Chatters. Demi's qualifications are truly exceptional. Her leadership as chair of the City of Everett's Planning Commission demonstrates her ability to navigate complex issues and make sound strategic decisions. Her tenure as chair of the Snohomish County Human Rights Commission underscores her unwavering commitment to justice and fairness, principles that are vital for ensuring that every student feels valued and supported. And her job as the director of operations for a law firm not only shows her ability to deal with attorneys, a skill we should all be so lucky to have, but more importantly, her exceptional organizational and managerial aptitude. Beyond her professional achievements, Demi is a mother of 4, all of whom have journeyed through the Everett Public School system through sports, academics, and extracurriculars. This lived experience provides her with invaluable insights into the gaps and opportunities that exist within our schools. She understands firsthand the challenges our students and families face, and she is passionate about creating a better learning environment for all. The Everett School District, as we know, holds dear the values of equity, diversion, and inclusion. And it's not merely just a statement, it's a call to action. Unfortunately, recent board appointments have overlooked well-qualified and sometimes overqualified candidates of color, and let's not miss that opportunity again today. Demi's perspective as a woman of color and as a mother of children of color is crucial. For a school district that's nearly 60% children of color, I would expect a board that is reflective of the diversity of the student body. Her presence would bring a vital and necessary voice to the dais, ensuring that the experiences and needs of all students are heard and addressed. This isn't simply about representation, it's about ensuring that our policies and decisions are informed by a wide range of perspectives. Demi Chatters is uniquely positioned to make a profound and positive impact on the Everett School District. Her experience, her dedication, her demonstrated knowledge of the history of the board, and deep understanding of the district make her the ideal candidate for this appointment, and we all know she'll hit the ground running. There's no learning curve with Demi. I urge you to support her appointment and help us create a brighter future for all students lucky enough to be part of the Everett School District. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. At this time, I would like to recess the special meeting for 5 minutes to be reconvened in the Silver Lake Room for an executive session. This is to discuss the qualifications of candidates for the school board director position number 3. We expect this to be about 30 minutes. I do believe this day has been rather tough. We will extend it if the time is necessary so that we can reach we cannot vote in there, but until we have a decision. We do expect the board to take action following this executive session, and we will keep everybody, I will come out here if we need to extend it more than that 30 minutes. So we will take off now, so thank you. All right, this is one of the hardest decisions a school board needs to make, and so we're going to take 20 more minutes to extend this executive session, so I will return in 20 minutes. Thank you. Thank you. I think the two things that we do for this district that have caused me the most emotion in the past many years is the appointment of board members and the appointment of the superintendent, because you really are the most important people that serve this district on top of the teachers and staff that serve the students every day. So at this time, we will conclude the executive session and reconvene into special meeting. The next item of business is selection of appointment of a successful candidate. I would like to ask the secretary to poll the board to vote for the candidate to be appointed to the unexpired term of Board of Directors Position 3 until the regular scheduled election in 2025. Will the secretary please poll?
Director Adkins.
Chatters.
Director Obelinsky.
Anna Marie Lawrence.
Director Herman.
Anna Marie Lawrence.
President Mitchell.
Anne Marie Lawrence. So hearing a 3/4 vote for Anne Marie Lawrence, the board therefore appoints Ms. Lawrence by a majority of votes to fill the vacancy for position 3. Are there any board comments? Director Atkins.
I'm deeply disappointed by this decision. I think that we have a responsibility to ensure that we're here for all kids in the district, and with over 60% of our kids in our district being kids of color, it does not sit right with me to have me a white-passing, mixed-race man be the only representation they have on this board. That is the conclusion of my comments.
I'd repeat what I believe you've already said. It's just the appreciation of all the candidates to come forward and go through this process and be willing to commit to the work of the school board, which is a big job. So I just want to thank all the candidates. Thank you.
Thank you. And so with really honestly a heavy heart and congratulations, this concludes the business scheduled to come before the Board of Directors during the special meeting, and the meeting is adjourned.